Hello, my name is Maria Boicova-Wynants, and you're listening to your IP Tube, Unlocking the Power of Intellectual Property. Today we're going to talk about generative AI and copyright. Generative AI is absolutely everywhere, and it's changing our lives at a dizzying pace. I mean, it's creating breathtaking art, it's writing the entire novels, it's coding software, but it also has kicked off that giant legal war that can redefine what creativity even means. Listen to an overview of a number of interesting recent reports and articles on the topic. This will give you an idea, but if you'd love to dig deeper, reach out to me in the comments or via LinkedIn, and I'll guide you towards more in-depth resources.
You've seen it, right? It's like the greatest magic trick of our time. You type in a few words, a steampunk owl reading a book in a library on Mars, and boom. Seconds later, a work of art appears on your screen. It feels like it was conjured out of thin air. But, as we all know, every magic trick has a secret. So where is all this incredible stuff really coming from?
And there it is, the big reveal. It comes from us, all of it. The magic is powered by these AI models gobbling up just mind-boggling amounts of data scraped from across the internet. And that data? It's our collective human soul. It's our art, our music, our books, our family photos, our code, everything.
And that simple fact that it's all built on our stuff, well, that is AI's billion-dollar secret. Because using all that data has ignited an absolute firestorm.
So here's the deal. The very foundation of these powerful models is that they're trained on our work. And a lot of that work is copyrighted. But it's often done without anyone's permission, without giving any credit, and certainly without paying for it. And this has led to some massive industry-shaking lawsuits. We're talking titans clashing, like the New York Times suing OpenAI, or Getty Images going after Stability AI. This isn't just some academic debate. This is a real battle over the future of art, ownership, and money.
All right, so to really get our heads around this, let's break the problem into two big pieces. First, we're going to look at the input, all that data that gets fed into the machine. And we'll tackle the fundamental question, is the training process itself even legal?
And that really is the million-dollar question for the input side, isn't it? Is this legal? Now, the AI companies, they argue that yes, it is. And they point to a very specific loophole, let's call it, in European Union law. But you have to ask, was that law ever really meant for this?
See, their whole argument hinges on something called the text and data mining exception, or TDM. But the key thing to understand is what TDM was created for. It was designed for research. The idea was to let scientists and academics scan huge amounts of text and data to find patterns or trends. So think of a cancer researcher mining thousands of studies to see if there's a correlation between a new drug and patient recovery. That's TDM. It's about analysis.
And this is exactly where the legal argument just hits a brick wall. Training a generative AI is a totally different ballgame. TDM is for extracting knowledge from data that already exists. Generative AI training is for synthesizing brand new things. It's not just analyzing the data, it's learning the very style, the structure, the creative essence of that data so it can make new images, new text, new music. It's the difference between analysis and synthesis.
This quote from a recent European Parliament report just nails it. It says, "These AI systems aren't just finding statistical correlations. They're processing and modeling the expressive patterns inside copyrighted works. In other words, they're learning the soul of the work, what makes an artist's style unique or a writer's voice distinct. And that goes way beyond what the TDM exception was ever for, which leaves us in this huge legal gray zone."
Okay, so that's the whole mess on the input side. But what about the output? What happens to the amazing stuff these models create? Well, that brings us to the second half of this giant puzzle. Who's the author? And this is where things get really, really wild. If an AI creates a masterpiece, a piece of music that gives you chills, or a painting that moves you to tears, all from a simple prompt, who owns it? Who's the author? Can a piece of software hold a copyright? Well, the world can't seem to agree. Over in the European Union, the view is very clear and very human-centric. To get a copyright, a work has to be the author's own intellectual creation. That's legal speak for a human had to make creative choices. Simple rule, no human, no copyright. But then you hop over to the UK, and it's a different story. Their law actually recognizes computer-generated works and says the author is the person who made the arrangements necessary for the thing to be created. So what's the real-world fallout from the EU's strict rule? It's huge. It means any work made completely by an AI with no meaningful human guidance isn't protected by copyright at all. It just falls straight into the public domain, free for anyone and everyone to use however they want. And you can see how that creates a massive problem for companies pouring billions of dollars into building these things. So just to recap, we've got a legal train wreck on the input side, and this giant legal vacuum on the output side. It's a mess. Clearly, the way things are now just isn't working. But there is a path forward being proposed, one that tries to find a way for both innovation and fairness to coexist. The proposed solution really stands on three simple, common-sense pillars. First, transparency. Can creators even figure out if their work was used in the first place? Second, fairness. Is there a way for them to get paid for that use? And third, enforcement. Who's the referee here? Who's going to make sure everyone actually follows the rules? Any solution for the future has to check all three of these boxes. And that brings us to the main event, the core recommendation. It's a system called statutory remuneration. You can think of it like a grand bargain. So, step 1, a new law gets passed that says, okay, AI developers, you have our permission to train on copyrighted material. This gives them the legal safety they desperately need. But, step 2, in exchange, using that material automatically triggers a mandatory right for creators to get paid. And step 3, how does the money get to them? It would be collected from the AI companies and then paid out to the artists and writers by groups that already exist to do this, called collective management organizations or CMOs. It's basically the same system that gets musicians paid when their songs are played on Spotify.
This whole thing really comes back to that first pillar, transparency. And the report uses this absolutely brilliant analogy to explain why it's so important. It says, imagine a hamburger produced by mixing traces of dozens of meats from unknown sources, right? We would never, ever accept that for our food. So the report asks, why on earth should we accept lower standards for the ingredients of AI, our shared culture, just because the final product is digital instead of edible?
Look, the choices that are being made right now are not just some minor policy tweaks. The path we choose in Europe and across the world is going to lead to radically different futures. Futures for creators, for tech companies, and for every single one of us.
And this chart, wow, it just lays the stakes out so clearly. It projects 3 possible scenarios for the year 2030. In the best case, guided progress, where we have clear rules and licensing, creator income could actually go up by about 15%, and Europe could build a real competitive AI industry. But in the worst-case scenario, creative erosion, where we do nothing, creator income could plummet by 40%. And Europe would basically build nothing, becoming just a consumer of AI built somewhere else. And that middle path, well, that just leaves everyone stuck in court, in a limbo of endless lawsuits.
At the end of the day, here's the most important takeaway. This doesn't have to be a war. This isn't a zero-sum game where either the artists win or the tech companies win. The whole point is to build a system that has legal certainty for the innovators and fair compensation for the creators. If we get that framework right, we can build a future where both human creativity and AI innovation can thrive together.
And that leaves all of us with the final and most important question. The technology is here. The debates are happening in parliaments and courtrooms right now. The choice between a future of guided progress and one of creative erosion, that choice is being made as we speak. So the only real question is, which future will we choose to build?